Okay, what do we got here? We tried to temper our enthusiasm a little bit. I'd really like to rip these stairs all the way out. They're, let's see, it's hard to, can't really see them here. Essentially, this is a good reason why it's a dark hole, even though I strung some work lights upstairs. You can't see them. They're piss poor, poorly constructed. They vary. Each rise varies a tiny bit. In fact, at the bottom it varies so much I almost always trip up or down them. And they won't be necessary fairly soon. What it would make is you'd come up, you'd come in the door, and if I gutted this out of here, you'd have an alcove. You know, this would actually go back in, you know, there, and you'd have an alcove. I really tried with that idea. These people are moving out in a month, and I can throw a stairway to the third floor in their place because I'm fully reconstructing their place. But let nobody ever say that when something occurs to me, I either have to A, say it, or B, do it. I do struggle with that, but I will not be ripping this out of here. You know, it would mean that it's probably hard to see here, but this full sheet of Homosote was notched for this room. This one was cut off for this room. So like 1, 2, I would take them out of here, and I would start with full sheet to there, and then I'd finish across, and I'd finish this whole end wall, and it would allow us to take this new floor product instead of notching the new flooring around this boxed out area here. I could carry it right through and into there all at one time. Whereas if I decide to do this later, that's going to be a bitch that I have to work on top of that new surface to start with, which those aren't as hard as these older surfaces, and they're darker in color, and for several reasons it's hard to bust out a job site on top of them and not worry that you should use some floor protection or whatever. So that's going to be an issue. Disturbing the people living here would be an issue. There's just so many variables. So essentially, I threw everything out of here into my truck. The truck's full. I don't have any more room for demolition material, and this is just making the project bigger and bigger and bigger at this time. And so it would be a best practice to just move right and take this out of here, but we're not going to do that. Long story short, I've done some recon here, and I noticed that, let's see, this window opening, there's like this board stop here, but then there's the last stud. This is an old style window that was not even framed out. They had weights hanging in here to offset the sash, etc. And then in the future, not in the future from our time, but after it was built, somebody had vinyl inserts installed, which means they got this finished window opening and they put a pair of sashes, vinyl sashes and stuff inside that opening without actually a vinyl jam and retrimming the outside or the inside. They leave it undisturbed, so they just snip the string, the rope that's holding the window weights, so the weights were laying in here in this opening. I took those out a little while ago. It's very lightly in here. It's just 3/4 inch jam, and normally that's fully against rigid dimensional lumber framing all the way around. And this is another place where you can just get into more and more complexity, where I would potentially frame all around this existing window up to modern standards for framing, but everything here is in a state of flux. I'd like to further divide this room. I would like to remove this stairwell entirely. Like I've discussed before, bring stairs up the outside of the building and come into that little weird office room where we built that floor-to-ceiling cabinet. And then this would become, so that's that other bed. This is one of the 2 bedrooms, this here. But if I were to remove this wall and gain this floor space by filling this in with joists and continue the flooring out here, then you really have a massive area that could be divided into maybe even another bedroom. So you could pull this wall right through here to there and make all of this and out in their bedroom, and make the laundry room just a lane that comes down and goes around. So dryers down here, washers there, hallway around them, enough just to come and go. That's just off the top of my head. There probably is a better arrangement. Anyway, you have to start managing when you anticipate doing something in the future and how much you work to that and anything else. So what did we do? We just gave up on that for now. Easiest thing is to just button back up what we have unbuttoned already. And so I started to do more recon here, and I noticed, this board comes through like that. He's about this big, he's about this big, and then he lands right on a seam here. So obviously these boards are different from these. These are probably original sheathing of the building. This is a fill-in. That's why there's pairs of studs here. That's why this one, if you look, was cut off. This 2x6, true 2x6 was cut off. It was filled in with a 2x4 when somebody was like, oh, gotta cover up that hole from wherever this was a hole to the outside, when it was, early in its tenure as a building, I guess. I don't know how else you want to put it, but it was cut here as well. So it wasn't a doorway because the floor wasn't up there. It was some kind of big window hole or access or what have you. So it was cut there, and it went out into somewhere else. And when they decided to close it all up, some asshole just stuck a 2x4 rather than a 2x6 in place here. They tagged some cleats here that I started to try to remove, but quickly discovered it was just full of nails. Look at the nails. Just to return these boards, because they don't quite, look at them, there's the end of one and there's the end of the other one. They didn't have long enough boards to get all the way over onto this stud, so they half-assed it so badly that they just threw them all in and just added these blocks here and shot the shit out of those with nails. And that's why I couldn't, this guy started giving it up and breaking, and I realized he's all just, the ends of these boards are all pinned into him. This is just a big clusterfuck here. He ends there. So again, I could have gone crazy and rebuilt this correctly. I'm going to wait for another time. We're just going to cover that opening from when the pipe went out. Screw with some short screws. We'll screw a plywood patch over it. I had to bring the surface of all these studs up to what was around this window, because like we ran into at the A-frame, the edge of the jamb must be flush with the wall covering product. And as it was, when I got everything off the wall, because there were boards on the inside here and on this side of that box out, and then on the left of the box out, the Homosote was applied to the raw studs on this side. Over here there were boards, and then wainscot, and then beadboard, and so it was packed up way higher. So the surface of the jamb and the edge of the windowsill are built to that level. So I needed to make all of this framing come towards us to work out at the edge of the window jamb all the way around, and that was going to need to be about an inch. After I added an inch here to compensate for the 2x4 that was used rather than the 2x6. These are nominal, but I needed an inch from there to there. So I added a deck board, then I added rips of 3/4 plywood to everything here, all the way around, all four edges, and all the studs. And now, I shot those all on with nails, but now I'm just using some underlayment ring shank nails, which have they're almost like a roofing nail, and that they have a big fat head on them. And I'm just hammering those in by hand, because I'm basically putting underlayment. I gotta have that 1 more quarter of an inch on the 3/4, so I'm adding that to here. And then over here, you'll notice when I add this to this, we've got ourselves our 1/2 inch for the Homosote, and then we're flush. So that's where we're at. We're gonna spend all day shimming this area all out. And then I'll have to throw insulation bats in there. I'm going to stick these electrical wires to the stud with some staples at the bottom and the top of what I can see here, tidy that up. I had some wires here that rolled out and into this drop ceiling for a fan light that I didn't feel like disconnecting, but I don't want them on the outside, so I notched them back in to the stud up there, and then I'll put one of those steel protection plates over it. That's the least I can do. And at some point then we will button this back up with Homosote, and then we've got to put some furring strip. This Homosote on this ceiling isn't applied just to the joist. It's difficult to see. There's furring strip there. I'm gonna have to fly some furring strip, like a purlin basically, across these to the wall. Then I can start with 1/2 inch Homosote and fill this in, and then I'm gonna come back and just throw some little cove mold on the inside corners, and we'll put taller baseboard around the whole room. But just slightly frustrating. It will all be okay. If I was going to go to all of this work, it would be nice to think that, it'd be nice if I could have pulled the stairwell out, and that most of this was semi-permanent and it was worth the effort. But I'm doing all this knowing that like this isn't going to live for more than 5 years before I'm back in here digging around, changing, rearranging. And we have structural repairs to do. That has to be picked up out there, probably 3 inches at that corner, because from here to here we've fallen an inch and that foundation is bad out there. That's where we want to do our addition out there. So we got to have new foundation from this point all the way out to there, turn and go down in preparation for our addition. But that'll allow us to pick this up out here and get it right, so we come through with new foundation under it. But that's going to rack the shit out of this door, this window, all this shit that we've put on the wall. So it's tough to work when you know you're going to tear it apart again soon. But that's what we're doing on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.